I decided to start a new hobby because my days felt repetitive and dull after long hours at work. I wanted something creative, relaxing, and challenging enough to keep my mind active in the evenings. After reading blogs, watching videos, and talking with friends, I realized hobbies are not only about fun, but also about growth and confidence. This thought pushed me to explore options I had ignored before, even though I felt nervous about failing at something completely new. At first, I made a long list of possible hobbies, including photography, painting, learning guitar, cooking international food, and even gardening on my balcony. Each option sounded exciting in a different way, but I knew I had limited time and energy. I carefully thought about my schedule, my budget, and what skills I truly wanted to develop. Eventually, I focused on activities that could fit into short daily sessions without requiring expensive equipment or special training. After several days of thinking, I chose to learn watercolor painting because it seemed calming yet expressive at the same time. I liked the idea of working with soft colors, slow brush movements, and peaceful music in the background. I ordered a beginner set online that included brushes, paper, and a simple palette. When the package arrived, I felt strangely excited, like a child opening a gift, even though I had no artistic experience at all. My first attempt was far from impressive, and I quickly realized how difficult it was to control water and pigment together. The colors spread unpredictably across the paper, and my shapes looked messy and unclear. For a moment, I considered quitting and putting everything back in the box. However, instead of giving up, I searched for beginner tutorials and reminded myself that every expert once started with awkward results and simple mistakes. I created a small routine for practicing 3 evenings a week, usually after dinner when my mind was calmer. I cleaned a corner of my desk, added a lamp with warm light, and kept my painting tools organized in a single box. This simple preparation made the process feel serious and meaningful. Slowly, my hands became steadier, my color choices improved, and I started enjoying the quiet concentration these short sessions provided. As weeks passed, I noticed changes beyond my technical skills. I felt more patient when facing problems, and I worried less about being perfect from the beginning. Painting taught me to slow down, observe details, and accept accidents as part of the process. Some unexpected color blends turned out beautiful, while others failed completely, yet both results helped me learn. This mindset slowly started influencing how I approach challenges in other areas of life. I also joined an online community where beginners shared their paintings, progress, and frustrations in a supportive environment. Seeing other people struggle with similar issues made me feel less alone and more motivated to continue practicing. Members often gave kind feedback and practical tips about brush control, paper quality, and color mixing. Reading their stories reminded me that improvement rarely happens overnight and usually requires patience, repetition, and curiosity. One weekend, I decided to paint a small landscape from a photo I had taken during a walk in the park. Trees, clouds, and reflections on water looked much harder than the simple shapes I usually practiced. I sketched lightly with a pencil before adding color, trying to stay patient with every layer. Although the final result was imperfect, it felt incredibly satisfying to finish a complete piece and display it on my wall. Starting this hobby also changed how I spent my free time on social media and television. Instead of scrolling endlessly, I now looked forward to quiet evenings with music, water, and paper. I felt more present and focused, which surprised me because I usually struggled to relax after busy days. The habit slowly replaced some unhealthy routines and gave me something positive to anticipate throughout the week, especially during stressful periods at work. Friends and coworkers eventually noticed my new interest and asked about the colorful sketches I sometimes brought to the office. Their curiosity encouraged me to talk openly about my experience, even though I still considered myself a beginner. Sharing both successes and failures helped reduce my fear of judgment. Surprisingly, a few people said they were inspired to try their own hobbies, which made me realize how personal changes can quietly influence others. Of course, motivation did not stay high every single week, and there were days when I felt tired or uninspired. On those evenings, I reminded myself that consistency mattered more than enthusiasm alone. Even 10 minutes of simple practice was better than doing nothing at all. I focused on enjoying the movement of the brush rather than judging the outcome, which made returning to my routine feel lighter and less demanding. Looking back after several months, I realized that starting a new hobby had given me far more than artistic skills. It improved my mood, reduced stress, and taught me discipline in a gentle way. I learned to appreciate slow progress and small victories instead of chasing quick results. This experience convinced me that everyone deserves an activity that brings calm, curiosity, and a sense of personal growth into everyday life. As my confidence grew, I started experimenting with new techniques such as wet-on-wet washes, textured salt effects, and layering transparent colors for depth. These methods looked impressive in tutorials, but they required careful timing and steady control. I failed many times before producing something close to what I imagined, yet each attempt taught me something valuable. Recording small notes about what worked helped me track patterns and avoid repeating the same mistakes in future sessions. Eventually, I invested in slightly better brushes and paper, not because I wanted luxury tools, but because I noticed how materials affected results. Higher quality paper absorbed water more evenly, while softer brushes allowed smoother strokes and cleaner edges. This upgrade motivated me to take practice seriously without becoming obsessed with expensive supplies. I reminded myself that tools support learning, yet dedication and curiosity remain far more important than owning professional equipment at an early stage. I challenged myself by setting small monthly goals, such as completing 3 finished pieces, mastering a specific technique, or recreating a photo with accurate colors. These targets kept me focused and prevented me from drifting without direction. Whenever I reached one goal, I celebrated quietly and planned the next step instead of stopping completely. This structure transformed painting from a casual experiment into a meaningful long-term project that fit comfortably into my lifestyle. Over time, I noticed that painting influenced how I observed the world around me during daily routines. I paid more attention to shadows on buildings, reflections in windows, and subtle changes in the sky at sunset. Ordinary scenes suddenly felt richer and more detailed, as if my eyes had been trained to search for beauty in simple places. This shift made walks more enjoyable and encouraged me to carry a camera or notebook wherever I went. Sharing my finished work online still made me nervous, but I forced myself to post occasionally in order to receive honest feedback. Some comments praised my progress, while others suggested improvements I had not considered. Instead of taking criticism personally, I tried to treat it as free guidance from people with similar interests. This attitude helped me grow faster and reminded me that creative communities often thrive on respectful discussion and encouragement rather than competition. There were moments when I compared my paintings to professional artists and felt discouraged by the huge gap in skill. Whenever this happened, I returned to my earliest sketches and noticed how much I had already improved. Remembering my starting point protected me from unrealistic expectations and negative self-talk. I learned that progress is rarely straight, often includes setbacks, and should be measured against your own past rather than someone else's achievements. One evening, I organized my paintings into a simple folder and flipped through them in chronological order. The difference between the messy attempts and my recent work surprised me more than any compliment could. This visual record of improvement motivated me to continue during difficult weeks and reminded me that regular effort quietly builds skill over time. It also encouraged me to date each piece so I could track my journey more clearly. Starting a new hobby also taught me to protect time for myself without feeling guilty about stepping away from work or responsibilities. I realized that rest and creativity are not luxuries but necessary parts of a balanced life. Scheduling painting sessions in my calendar helped me treat them as important appointments rather than optional distractions. This simple change improved my energy levels and made me more focused and productive during the rest of the week. I often think about how easily I could have ignored this idea and continued spending evenings the same way as before. Taking that small risk of trying something unfamiliar opened a door to learning, relaxation, and unexpected joy. It reminded me that growth often begins with simple decisions that feel slightly uncomfortable at first. This realization now encourages me to stay open to future hobbies or projects instead of dismissing them too quickly. Now, whenever someone asks me for advice about starting a new hobby, I tell them not to wait for perfect conditions or complete confidence. I suggest beginning with basic tools, short sessions, and realistic expectations instead. Mistakes, boredom, and slow progress are all normal parts of the process, not signs of failure. What truly matters is showing up regularly and allowing curiosity to guide you forward, even when motivation feels low. Starting a new hobby became one of the most rewarding choices I made for my personal well-being in recent years. It gave me a creative outlet, reduced stress, and connected me with people who shared similar interests. More importantly, it reminded me that learning does not end after school or work, but continues whenever we decide to explore something new. This experience taught me to value progress, patience, and enjoyment above perfection.